Already. Welcome to this meeting of Inverclyde Council's Police and Fire and Rescue Committee stroke panel. This meeting has been held remotely and also in person in order to comply with public health guidelines around social distancing. It will be filmed and recorded for live and subsequent broadcasts available through the Council's website. The Council is a data controller under the General Data Protection Regulations and the Data Protection Act 2018. We broadcast and record Council meetings to fulfil our public task obligation to enable members of the public to observe the democratic process. Data collected during the process will be retained in accordance with the Council's published policies available through the Council's website. Members of the Council are reminded they should follow the Council's established meeting protocols, including around the use of the chat facility, and that comments made in the chat facility are visible to all participants in the meeting, which may include members of the public who've also received invites to the meeting. Thank you for listening to that, everybody. Lindsay, do we have any apologies, substitutions, or declarations of interest?
Apologies from Councillor Maguire with Councillor Cassidy substituting. Convener, we will now move to a roll call. Can following members please indicate if they are present at the meeting, either in person or remotely? Councillor Brennan.
Present at the meeting in chambers.
Councillor Plocherty.
Present in chamber.
Councillor Daisley.
Present remotely.
Councillor Law.
Present remotely.
Councillor Cassidy.
Present in the chamber.
Provost Mackenzie.
Present in the chamber.
Councillor Moran.
In the chamber.
Councillor Quinn.
Present in the chamber.
Councillor Reynolds.
Present in the chamber.
Councillor Wilson.
Present in the chamber.
Are there any declarations of interest?
Thank you very much, colleagues. I would like to welcome from Fire and Rescue, David McCarry and Murdo Henderson. From Police Scotland, Chief Superintendent Duncan and Chief Inspector Paul Halloran. First of all, we'll move on to agenda item number 2 under performance management. Scottish Fire and Rescue Service Performance Report. David, would you like to take this on, please?
Thanks, Convener. I'll just say a couple of words and then I'll bring Murdo in and he'll go through the report for committee members. Welcome to yourself as the new chair and Councillor Baisley as the vice convener. Welcome to existing members and new members of the committee. Just to give you some context to my background, I've been in and out of this area since about 2009. I've been the temporary area commander since last June and subsequently the substantive area commander in January of this year, so I'm hopeful that I'll stay within Inverclyde for the foreseeable future. It's an area that's very close to my heart. We have, and I say this at committee quite a lot, we have good people working for us in Inverclyde. They're very committed. The vast majority of them are local to the community, which is helpful because they know the area. Murdo, who's on the call and will shortly take you through the report, is the cluster lead for Inverclyde. We have Station Commander Colin McGee, who is responsible for Greenock and Port Glasgow, and Station Commander Scott McMillan, who is responsible for Greenock Community Fire Station. So Murdo will take you through the report and give you some context to each section. I think we've got input about the strategic plan after that, and I'll try and keep that brief. But with your permission, Convener, I'll bring Murdo in and he can go through the performance report.
Thank you. Welcome, Murdo.
Thank you, Convener, elected members and partners. I'll just take you through our performance report for quarter 4 of 21-22. First of all, reporting a very positive picture if I refer to page 3 and 4 of the report, which overall shows a downward trend in the vast majority of the areas of activity that we are scrutinised on. There are some exceptions there with deliberate fire, which has seen a rise of 27%, and I'll talk to that later to give you some context. And there's a slight increase in unintended harm, and I'll talk to that in context later on as well. But one of the very positive things I would like to highlight to you during this meeting is that our overall incident statistics are down 5%, and we have a 38% reduction in the number of fire and non-fire related casualties. So overall, all very pleasing to be able to report that to committee today. If I can move on to page 5 and page 6, I'll take the two of them in context, which is accidental dwelling fires and accidental dwelling fire casualties. Once again, a significant reduction here, and I would like to pay tribute to our crews, our operational crews who work in our prevention activities across Inverclyde. And I always state the importance of fire detection. Smoke detection is a hugely important factor in regards to the fact that most of the accidental dwelling fires that we do attend, you'll see there's a 62% statistic where there is no firefighting action. The education activities that we take care of is done very much in the partnership approach, and here to our partner agencies and Paul Cameron, Scotland, that inaugurated the Inverclyde hub meetings, where our information sharing protocols are absolutely excellent, and that networking allows us to reach out to the community. And I would say that it is no accident that our statistics here are very low, and continue to strive to make sure that continues. If I move on to page 6, correction, page 7, and we look at unintentional injury and harm. We have a slight increase here. However, there's some context around that, because even though we have an increase, the incident numbers are very low. So that needs to be rated in respect of the unintentional injury and harm and the amount of casualties that there are involved with regards. Main, this is attributed to road traffic collisions and assisting other agencies, assisting our partner agencies. The information that can skew these figures at times is road traffic collisions. There can be multiple casualties within the one vehicle, a single incident, and it's pleased to know that the majority of these are very, very low injury ratios with regards to they're just checked up at hospital and it's a precautionary checkup. So again, for the reporting period, there's a slight increase, but that must be taken contextually. I would expect a report at every meeting that I would expect the assisting other agencies to increase because of the expanding role of the firefighter that David will go on to when he
I think you're
talks
breaking up, Murdo.
later about. Can you hear me,
No, you're
Convener?
breaking up a wee bit, Murdo.
Okay.
Murdo, maybe put your video
Okay.
off and see if that helps.
I'll turn the camera off. I bought super new Wi-Fi during the pandemic, and it seems not to be working today.
Right, camera's
Is that
off.
now? Can you hear me now?
Yes,
Okay.
I can.
Thank you, and apologies for that. So if I take us back to the report, we just dealt with unintentional harm. The deliberate fire setting statistic that I mentioned earlier, there's been an increase here. It is an area of concern to all partner agencies and therefore the council and the committee. However, this needs to be taken in context that this is reflected across the country. This is reflected across the whole of Scotland. For this reporting period, January to March, we do see a spike with regards to seasonal variations because March is the traditional time when we see deliberate grass fire setting, for example. So that will be reflected in these figures. Where we have areas of concern, once again, I would like to highlight the excellent partnership working. We are cited on this and we're working closely with Police Scotland to deal with these incidents when they occur. What I'd also like to highlight to committee is that Inverclyde, our area, is involved in a national deliberate fire setting reduction partnership, and the work from that will bring dividends for this moving forward. Moving on to page 9, and our non-domestic fire safety. Once again, statistics are very pleasingly low, and I always like to pay some homage to our professional enforcement officers who provide advice, support, and audit premises to make sure that duty holders are meeting their obligations under fire safety legislation. And the statistics there are once again pleasingly low, and where we do have fire damage, the damage is generally of a very low severity with no firefighting action. 3 out of 5 occasions, 60% no firefighting action at all. Moving on to page 10, unwanted fire alarm signals. Now, we reported on this to committee with regards to our future vision, and that we're completely changing the way that we're going to react to unwanted fire alarm signals. However, we're still seeing significant reductions within Inverclyde, which is excellent. Locally, we have adapted a unwanted fire alarm signal champion who is working really well with all the duty holders that are involved here. We have our top 10 areas of concern, and we engage with them directly. And we have our Take 5 campaign, which is taking the 5 most common reasons for us having unwanted fire alarm signals and providing education in the premises where we're seeing these alarms. The move next year that will change the way that we deal with unwanted fire alarm signals will see us increasing significant capacity for us to do other safety work within the communities. If you take Scotland as a whole, the statistics are a little bit higher. About 40% of all activity is false alarms, and we'll see a significant increase in our daytime capacity, especially for us to increase our education activity to make communities safer for people. So overall, that concludes the summary of the main elements of the report and some context, especially around those areas where we're seeing increases. Very much like to advise the committee that we are absolutely on this, and I'll commend the report to the committee, and I'll hand back to my boss, David McCarry.
Thank you, Murdo. I think I'll take questions just now for that. I don't see anything in the chat. Anybody in the chamber? Councillor Moran.
Thank you, Convener, and again, it's a great report. But my question is on, always prevention is better than cure in a lot of circumstances. I'll maybe a wee bit parochial here when I'm talking about my own ward in Port Glasgow with a lot of empty factories are lying empty, and there's a lot of our premises we found throughout Inverclyde lying empty now. And I just want to ask the fire service, do they have a register and an index of all these properties, who owns them, and the fact that they work with the council and probably Police Scotland as well to have this register, so if anything was to happen toward, they could deal with it, and more importantly, they know who the responsible owners is of these premises, so they could take steps to alleviate any potential fire. So my question is, do we have that register, and do we work with our partners to regularly update it?
Thank you, Councillor Moran. I think it's very relevant. David or Murdo, does one of you want to handle that question from Councillor Moran?
I'll take that one. Convener, the answer is yes. I know this question had been raised previously at committee with a fire where there'd been an individual residing on one of the premises, if you recall, Councillor Moran. So the answer is yes. Ownership is reasonably easy to establish in the sense that if we were to take any enforcement action with any current occupied buildings through our legal representation and through our enforcement leads centrally at headquarters, that's where that link would be established, if you like. For example, if we had noticed either through the wardens or even our firefighting personnel, like I say, a lot of them are local residents, if they noticed that a building had either been subject to some graffiti, which would suggest there'd been people maybe congregating there, or indeed the premises had looked as if it had been made insecure, then that's the point at which all that dialogue between our partners would kick in at those weekly, the 3 times a week hub meetings that Murdo's alluded to, and that's where we would have that conversation and put any remedial action in place that we needed to.
Thank you, David. You okay with that, Robert?
Yes, very reassured, David. Thank you for that reply.
Any others? Understand Councillor Crowther's on board now.
That's correct, thank you. I still have issues with my laptop, and the reset had failed. So I've tried resetting again and have effectively given up, so I have had to call in. Thank you.
Well, it's nice to hear from you, Councillor Crowther. Do you have any questions on the agenda item that you missed?
Well, what I've actually went through is I was looking at, again, wearing my water safety hat, and while I note that the number of fatalities through drowning in Scotland is the highest in the UK, it's welcome that this year so far there has been none in Inverclyde. I think there was one last year, and it's really just to thank the Fire and Rescue Service for the work that they're doing, and also at this point I'd obviously have to include the MCA for the work that they've been doing as well. And yesterday I did take a walk along the waterfront, and as per usual, checking out the life belts, etc., that everything was fine, and it's all been checked out. So really there's not too much for me to ask just now, as that fingers crossed that as we come up to the school holidays, that the swimming lessons that we'll have through Inverclyde Leisure, that the people who have been participating in them have found that very, very helpful, and that through the year, hopefully we will not have any drownings in Inverclyde. The only other question I really had is more a comment rather than a question, is that the number of fire raising regarding hill fires, I haven't noticed as much in that line this year, and it's just to find out if the visitations by the Fire and Rescue Service to the schools, if they reckon that is paying off, and that could be the reason why there has been less in the way of hill fires.
Thank you, John. I think your interest in the water, you're known as Mr. Water around the building. You are our expert on harbours, rivers, and the sea. David, I think there's a question for you there about schools and warnings about grass.
Absolutely. Yes, Convener, I can take that in two parts. With regards to water safety, it was the anniversary, sadly, in a neighbouring local authority of the sad passing of 13-year-old William McNally. We've done a lot of work with that local authority around provision of safety equipment around inland waterways and other waterways, and there was a video produced in partnership with them to highlight the dangers. In terms of what that looks like in Inverclyde, we have been deploying our community action team. It's good to see them back face to face with young people and other community groups. So as part of that, across the 3 local authority areas, I think we've spoken to over 1,500 young people about the dangers of water safety. When we roll that onto deliberate fire setting, and you maybe see something coming out in the local press shortly, we will run a summer online campaign about deliberate fires, people, going out in the countryside, etc., etc. So there's a number of safety messages coming out around deliberate fire setting. To give you some context, and we hope this continues, last year across Scotland, deliberate fire setting was down about 17%. Actually, I think if I look at the figures for Inverclyde, we were about 12%. So that's starting in Q1, and I hope that positive trend continues. But we'll continue to do everything we can. And I'm always keen not to stigmatise young people with this. I think my colleagues in Police Scotland, I think the last person that we were apprehended and charged was 40, and whilst I think when we're all 40 we like to think we're a young person, that probably doesn't fit that bracket. So it's, yes, we can't get away from the statistical data that shows us that this tends to happen out with term time and summer holidays, but it has to be said that young people are not the main cause of this. There is an element of it, but it's also, we need to get them to be the ambassadors of change rather than people that we constantly look to, the people that might be setting these. So a lot of good work going on, and that will continue over the summer while the schools are on holiday.
Okay, that's lovely. Thank you for your response.
Thank you, David. I don't see anything in the chat. Anybody else within the room? The chambers have questions on that particular agenda item? Right, thank you for that, Murdo and David. Can we move on to agenda item number 3, Scottish Fire and Rescue Service Strategic Plan 22 to 25. I think, David, you're going to speak to this.
Thanks, Convener. I'm conscious that with the timing of the meeting, that the consultation closes in early July, but just to give committee members some context about what the strategic plan is. So the Fire and Rescue Framework, that's a statutory duty for the Minister, is produced every 3 years, and in response to that framework, the Scottish Fire and Rescue Service produces its strategic plan. So it just sets a clear direction for everything we do, set out what we need to work towards achieving. So it's good practice for any organisation to have a strategic or corporate plan, but we're also set out our intentions. So basically, like all public sector organisations, we face financial challenges, and we must work with partners to make sure we make the most of the money that we collectively have. So challenges like an ageing population, growing numbers of people who face economic inequality day to day. So it'll set out how we propose to address that over the next 3 years. So really, committee will want to know what that means locally for Inverclyde, and how does that national high-level picture manifest itself locally. So in response to the strategic plan, I and the team centrally will produce a local fire plan. So a lot of the stuff that Murdo's talked through in that performance report, and that's just part of it. That's really just the 6 sort of key indicators that we highlight to committee. But I'm hopeful that we can also come and tell you some of the work that's going on behind those scenes. And that really feeds down into local staff appraisals. So every 6 months, each member of staff within Inverclyde has a staff appraisal, and they will set targets and how they fit in with all the stuff that we're trying to do. And it's not just fire related. So for example, in response to Dementia Awareness Week, one of our watch commanders has reached out to partners and has organised dementia awareness training. So you can see it's not just firefighting, it's really about us trying to understand what our communities look like and how we can get a better understanding of how we can help them with their safety, with their security, with their connectivity, not just in relation to fire. Clearly that's something that we will do as our core business, but it's how can we shape that delivery in the futures and outline how your firefighters can influence that safety agenda more widely by, absolutely focusing on the core traditional role, but helping be part of that multi-agency approach to safety for the residents, and particularly those residents that are most vulnerable. So my job is to maintain that frontline response and maximise public safety, invest in our staff, invest in our buildings, invest in our equipment. Part of their well-being is the conditions that they work in, and that's my job to make sure that we've got the most up-to-date technology. For example, thermal image cameras at Port Glasgow and Greenock. Just those additional safety measures that we can look to firefighters. So hopefully, particularly for new committee members, over the course of the next reporting period, and please feel free through the council officers to contact me at any time if there's anything in the report that you would like changed or you would like to see more of. That report can evolve and flex. So I would welcome your feedback on the consultation. I will send the link through the council officers. I would invite members just to consider it and contribute to the consultation with a look forward to me producing the local fire plan in the back of that. Thanks, convener.
Thank you, Jim. Can I just, before I commend else, and I have one question. To page 13, you say in the paragraph, what success will look like in 3 years? And the 4th bullet point is sharing more of our premises with partners and seeking efficiencies where we can through collaborative working. What does sharing premises, what could that mean? Could that mean community transport or the police or somebody else sharing premises?
So for example, since about 2009 at Greenock Community Fire Station, we have had the local officer from the MCA who is based at Greenock. We also have Police Scotland's underwater search team and marine policing unit. So that's well embodied in there. So that's an example of a shared site. But also some of our premises, for example, have hosted community groups, smoking cessation groups, etc. So these are community fire stations. If we can, clearly during COVID, that was almost impossible to facilitate. But if people can see that building as a community facility, as long as we can bottom out all the actual arrangements for people utilising those facilities, then we can encourage people more to see that as somewhere that they can use as a community facility. So that has always been the case, but we want to just make sure that we can make that more aware to people rather.
So would you welcome us putting community groups in your direction?
Absolutely. That's what it's always been a community facility. It's just that, and that's really about the evolution of fire and rescue. It's just how do people view us? Do they view us as that core role, or can we influence community groups and other partners to see us as people that can assist them in whatever way that is? And if that means a use of a building for a meeting for a particular group, then that's something we'll always look to facilitate if we can.
Thank you for that, David. I don't see anything in the chat, colleagues. Lynn, Councillor Quinn.
Yeah, thanks, David. Just a quick question. First of all, to
thank the officers from Gourock Fire Station coming along with the Gourock Garden Party and did a bit of fire safety advice and what solves and how the kids, one of the fire engines along, although the noise begins to drive you mad to the end of the 4 hours, but the kids seem to love it. So just one thing that came up there was about recruitment. So they were talking about the routine service. Obviously, Gourock is fully a routine service, and there seems to be an issue with recruitment and trying to get retained folk within that station. Is that something we can partner up with the council? Obviously, we're talking about cost of living crisis and everything else. You know, obviously, a retained, getting someone within the routine service would be an ideal second job. So, is that something that we could partner on to try and deal with that issue? Thanks.
Absolutely. The watch commanders from both Greenock, Port Glasgow and Gourock attended a recruitment fair last Thursday. I've just ordered up supporting materials so that we can be more visible, both on the sides of the fire station and also with pop-up banners. But yes, it's something that we are constantly looking to recruit. We're in a reasonably healthy position, I have to say, in Inverclyde with the numbers that we have in the stations. I know the watch commander at Gourock's very proactive in this area, so I would encourage any individual, if it's something they want to consider, then we have a new online toolkit for our on-call recruitment, loads of information on the Scottish Fire and Rescue Services website, and it's something that we'll be promoting through our own Twitter feeds and social media outlets. But yeah, it's something that's on our radar all the time, and it's about making sure that we can get people into the organisation, because some people come in and want to make a difference to the community, other people want to come in because they see that as a route as to coming into a whole-time firefighter. But no, council, it's something that we're absolutely on as recently as last Thursday.
Great, thanks. So it's just that and ask, I don't know if I can, but if our own corporate coach could help with that, especially the routine service being a second job. So I think if people are, seeing it that it could dovetail with their existing job, it's not just for someone that doesn't have a job currently. Thank you.
Ruth?
Through you, Convener, what we would tend to do is link in with the fire services own comms. So if they're putting it out via Twitter, we can retweet that, so I can do it as an action.
Great, thank you.
Okay, then.
Yeah, thanks.
Right, thank you for that, David. Any other questions? I don't see anything in the chat. Oh, Councillor Moran.
I will. As you say, you want your money worth of me. It's outcome free, and I just asked Dave, because I know David is a very forward-thinking person, and so is the whole service. And it's probably bullet point 5, it said implement a new approach, undertaking research and development. Is there any thought to go into drone technology? Because I'm sure that would be a great asset, they're trying to find out, it sets in a tender up to Lost Tom to find out where the fire was. They could have a drone up there in a matter of minutes and pinpoint exactly where the fire was. So it's just to see if they're thinking of using this technology going forward.
Absolutely, Councillor. Our Response and Resilience Directorate have an R&D section within it. So everything from we've got a new all-electric appliance that's being trialled at one of our stations in the west. So things like that. But drones, you're absolutely right. I know police colleagues could maybe comment on this as well. The only issue that we had around using drones was the sort of licensing of them. So what we have sitting side by side, our operational response is what's called the Community Asset Register. And we have a number of assets on that can be used in things like secondary fires and remote rural locations to create fire breaks, tractors, etc., diggers. And part of that could potentially be a drone. So if you imagine a large wildfire, for example, it could give myself or another incident commander a look at that entire site, or even a building fire as well. So yes, it's absolutely something we looked at, and it's just the technicalities around using them. But yeah, that's exactly one of the things that we would be looking to utilise, yes.
Okay, well.
Yeah, I'm happy with that.
Anything else? Thank you for that, David. I suggest we can move on to agenda item number 4, the Police Scotland Performance Report. Chief Inspector Duncan, please.
Yeah, good afternoon, Convener, councillors. Just to add my own congratulations in terms of re-election and convening of the committee. So my background, like David, I cover a wider area than Inverclyde, Renfrewshire and Inverclyde. I'm the divisional commander for that, and Paul Cameron, who I'll introduce shortly, is the area commander, so very much locally based. And thoroughly enjoy policing in this area, and we've got really good, strong links with the fire service, local authority and other colleagues. Moving to the actual report, the high level in this, it's a positive report, but it is placed within the context of COVID. So the report does cover a fluctuating period where we moved in and out of lockdown, and the crime trends and types of incidents that are detailed in the report reflect that sort of period. So we're now experiencing the reopening of society, nighttime economy, etc., and we're keeping a close eye on our plans to cater for that. But in general terms, yeah, I'd commend the report as positive around our performance to safeguard the communities of Inverclyde. And if in order, I'll just hand over to Chief Inspector Cameron.
Good afternoon, Chief Inspector. Thank you.
Hi everyone. So first of all, I just add my congratulations as well to all the councillors who have been elected or re-elected. I've been in touch with quite a few already, and I'm sure over the coming weeks and months I'll get to speak to everyone. I have passed out my mobile number. Feel free if you need to phone me, anything to do with Inverclyde policing. I'll try and resolve it for you as best as I can. In terms of the report, so I won't go through it page by page. I'll just do it, I suppose, in my normal way, and I'll just assume that everyone has read it, and I'll answer any questions at the end if that's okay. So the bits I'd like to highlight are, so total crime. Total crime is down 6.8% in Inverclyde, so a total of 5,719 crimes were committed during this reporting period, which is basically a full year worth of data there. Incidents recorded are down 13%, so we're roughly about 18,500 incidents that police have attended in the last 12 months, and that's down on the 5-year average of 21,000, roughly 21,000, so just down about 3,000 on the 5-year average, so that's a good trend for us. In terms of then breaking it down further, so when you then look through the report, you'll see that common assaults are down 6.9% to 624 assaults. Again, most of this is against the 5-year average, which gives us a good indicator of exactly where we are. And I'm really pleased to say that emergency workers assaults are down 13.5% to 123 assaults, which is still way too many, but it's gone in the right direction because for a long time it was on the upward direction, which obviously we've tried to stop that from happening. In terms of acquisitive crime, so when you look at dishonesty that's been committed across Inverclyde, so dishonesty in its entirety is down 9.5%, where it's 1,180 dishonesty incidents or crimes have been recorded by us. House break-ins, so when we break that down further, so some of the things that I think are really important to highlight here are house break-ins are down 41.3%, so 108 house break-ins have been committed from a 5-year average of 184. It's 108, still too many, but it's on the right direction for us. Motor vehicle crime is down 47.4%. Shoplifting, unfortunately, shoplifting has increased by 20%. And the last scrutiny board, I gave examples of 9 individuals who had committed almost 300 shoplifting incidents between them. That's now nearly 300. We are working with the fiscal service around about that. We are looking to introduce an exclusion zone to Greenock and Port Glasgow areas. That will definitely give the businesses a bit of respite there and a wee bit more autonomy around about how we can deal with this type of crime that's happening in Inverclyde. We're also looking at possibility of introducing the radio link system to the premises so that the staff have a way of communicating with each other and I suppose with the police as well. Sticking to dishonesty then, so fraud, unfortunately fraud, we're not the only ones here. This is across the UK, certainly across Scotland, I can verify. That has increased by 58.4%. Now, we anticipated that this was going to be the case, and we've done a lot of work throughout the year round about that. We've done the shutout scammers, we've got the fraud leaflets and information put into the council tax bills. We've done an online awareness session with HCP staff to make them aware of the current scams that are ongoing across Scotland, and in particular Inverclyde. I personally chaired that myself, and it was pretty well received. We'll be working with trading standards round about that. There's still a lot of work to be done round about this to educate the public as to what a scam actually looks like. We've got in place an absolutely outstanding banking protocol that is really working fantastically well. Almost every week we're getting called by the banks where suspicious activity or large sums of money are getting withdrawn by vulnerable individuals. And we've been called and we've been able to intervene and stop that from happening. So that banking protocol is really doing its business there. Moving on from dishonesty, I've got quite a lot to get for you, so I'll just try to go as quick as I can. Domestic abuse incidents are down 9.3%. That's on. If you look across Scotland, we're not really any different to what's happening across Scotland. So we're not setting any different kind of trend here. So 800 domestic abuse incidents have taken place, and our detection rate has slightly increased to 70.6%. That is above the national average, so we're doing well there, but obviously there's still work to be done to get that better, which we will do. Then when we look at violent crime, so violent crime is down 6.9%. So there was a total of 724 violent incidents that took place in the last 12 months in Inverclyde. Serious assaults are down 5.8%. Robberies are down 0.8%. So not much of a change there, but it is down, so it's going the right way. And you'll see in the report that our detection rate is slightly off to what it was. It was 70.7, and in this report it's set at 61.9%. I'll just put a wee bit of caution out about that. That's not going to stay like that because there is ongoing inquiries. These type of inquiries are sometimes quite protracted and take a lot of police work to get them there, but we will get a lot more of these over the line, and I'm sure our detection rate will come right back up again. So it's just, I suppose, let's just be patient with this because it does take a lot of work to get these detections. Sexual crimes. So sexual crimes are down 20.8%. So there's 119 sexual crimes reported to us. And I suppose a summary of that would be 76% of all sexual crimes occurred in residential homes. I say residential, just normal homes. 35% were victims under the age of 16, and 39% involved non-recent inquiries. Some of these gone back decades. So there's a lot of work that goes into these to get detections out of that. We've already talked about fire raisings, but from a police perspective, so in Inverclyde it's down 6.6%. So there was 48 fire raising incidents across Inverclyde. We have had a number of strategic meetings to look at various risks, working with in partnership with the fire service, the trading standards, and Scottish Ambulance Service and the council, and SEPA as well. So we'll continue to do that. There's been a number of arrests recently that have taken place for quite a few high-profile fires, I suppose is the best way of describing it. And we made a number of arrests around about that, and there's a number of ongoing live inquiries, which obviously you appreciate I won't talk about today, but there is a number of ongoing inquiries which will result in individuals being charged in due course. Road traffic casualties, so I'm pleased to say that that's down 8%. So on the previous year there was 49 road traffic casualties, and this year for this reporting period is 45, so that's 4 less victims. Drink and drug driving continues to be a problem in Inverclyde. I know you've heard me say this every time I come to this meeting, but it does continue to be a problem for us. That's up 41.5% on the 5-year average to 133 drink and drug driving. We continue to address this. The public are coming forward fantastically well, I have to say, via Crime Stoppers and various other routes to tell us about individuals who are committing these offences. And I continue to get the support from national resources, from our road policing colleagues, who are pretty much in Inverclyde. Every time I ask for them, I get them. So we'll continue to do that and try and address this problem. Disorder complaints. So disorder is down 27.6%. So there was 3,138 disorder incidents in the last 12 months. We have our youth safeguarding plan, which we work with all the partners. It's not just a Friday and a Saturday, but it's pretty much every day of the week. We continue to do that. We've got the parent alert letters. That still continues to make a big difference. And certainly feedback I get from parents is that they really value that when they get told about their young people being in places they didn't think they were. We had the street football in the Tesco car park on a Friday night. That's via Morton Football Club, and that was about trying to divert youths away from disorder in about the Port Glasgow area. That worked really well, and we'll look to try and continue that. Vandalism. So vandalism is down quite a bit, actually. So it's down from
You disappeared,
Yeah.
Chief Inspector. We'll just wait a minute or so to see if Chief Inspector comes back.
Yeah, I'll kind of fill in. So I think Paul's internet's just dropped out there. He's covered the kind of main elements of the report. The final bit is just around confidence in the police. So complaints about the police and user satisfaction is the last piece in the report, which we monitor. So again, we're seeing a pretty positive picture there in terms of, in broad strokes, reductions in complaints about the police that we receive, both on duty, which is relating to individual officers, and quality of service there is relating to probably more organisational responses to things. So again, a pretty positive picture there, but happy to take any questions.
Thank you, David. Any questions? Lynn?
Yeah, thanks, Davina. I've just got a general question about our community policing. So, I mean, obviously, ours it's been round the block a few times in here quite a while. We all see the benefit of our community police just being in, prevention of crimes, just that feeling of safety for our communities, just them being visible just helps with that general feeling. And also that unofficial gathering of intelligence, they're walking around talking to members of the community and they gather things that you might not otherwise know about. So all these things have been really positive on our communities, and having a link for us as well. If there are small things that are boiling under the surface, we can report them in, and we've got that really strong partnership. It's just, so I've got concerns in that they're maybe not as visible as they were. Obviously, COVID would play a part, but now things are going back to normal. I'm just seeking some reassurance there that those community police and the benefit to our communities has been recognised, and that will, a sort of commitment that will continue. And just on the back of that as well as, so in my ward, I go to 2 community council meetings, we cut across 2, and for since the start of the year when the community councils have came back together, there's been no community police present at those community meetings, which again gives that sort of reassurance, them being there and be able to answer those sort of questions. So I'm just looking for a kind of general comment on that area. Thanks.
Thank you, Lynn. I've noticed as well, since our Constable Jimmerson in Kilmacombe and Port Glasgow, since he retired, there's not been the same presence at Community Council. But I noticed that Paul is offline. David, would you like to handle that question from Councillor Quinn?
Yes, thanks. So I'm absolutely committed to a preventative approach, and community police officers are central to that in real terms at a local level. So yeah, in answer to the first part of your observations, I'm absolutely committed to maintaining community police. We do have a healthy disposition of CP officers at Greenock and across the piece. We have been impacted by absence over the last while, and also moving back into sort of physical meetings. I want to get the CP officers back round the community councils as much as they can. Did have a bit of an issue just use of IT or kind of IT systems and dialing into different formats of meetings. Our technologies, security systems didn't allow us to do that as much, but I'm absolutely committed, and as is Paul, to rebuilding a pattern of regularity with community councils and absolutely being visible in the local area. And some of that can be done through social media. So we're doing a campaign of just showing community policing activities on our kind of social media feeds, just to make sure that the public are fully aware of what they are doing. And I think some of the results that you'll see in future board meetings will bear that out. Thank you.
Chief Inspector, would it help at the next meeting, perhaps, if we got a local update from Chief Inspector Cameron, where we are with community policing in Inverclyde?
Oh, hi folks, sorry, I'm just joined by mobile phone, if that's okay?
Yes, good. Welcome back.
Yeah, sorry, I don't know what happened there, sorry.
Yeah, you didn't get promoted while you were away.
Oh, that's okay. I don't mind that.
There was a motion that was narrowly defeated. I think Councillor Quinn raised a question about community policemen, and obviously coming out of the pandemic, they've not been at community councils as much, because in many cases there haven't been community councils. But we wondered if back to the next meeting with an update on the activities of community police. Would that be okay?
Right. Oh yeah, absolutely. And we have actually started receiving the invites for the community councils, and I think we've been to 2 already. So that's good that they're starting back up again. So we will be going to them. But I can certainly give you an update on CPT.
Thank you very much, Chief Inspector. I don't see any in the chat. Any questions from colleagues here? Oh, I'm sorry, Francesca.
Thanks very much. So, a couple of questions to ask. So, one's related to the Shut Out Scammers campaign that's outlined on page 25, and thanks very much for the update on that. I noticed that the next crime was the cyber-enabled sexual offences, and I just wondered if there were any plans for corresponding campaigns to try and tackle that particular campaign, similar to the Shut Out Scammers campaign, in order to help safeguard people, especially the 16 to 20 age range. And then another point that I wanted to raise was just that you've already talked about the street football being a big success in Port Glasgow, so that was great to hear in terms of the youth safeguarding plan. But I noticed the report mentioned that if it was popular, it might be extended to other localities. So I'd like to see if there was a plan for that to happen and which localities it might be, because it sounds like a really, really positive thing. Slightly related to that, I think when we're on that youth safeguarding, I suppose there's, it's linked to the patrols around the licensed premises, and also with drug dealing and misuse being a priority area for attention. Some people have come to me just expressing some concerns, and Inverclyde is no different from other places, but just about the sort of availability locally in shops of drugs paraphernalia. And I just wondered if there are patrols happening around licensed premises. I just wondered if there were any patrols happening around some of the shops that are involved in that kind of particular retail activity at the moment.
Thank you, Francesca. There's about 5 questions there, David and Paul. I'll let you handle it between you.
Yeah, I'll go first if that's all right. So the street football, so the issue with that is about funding. So we just need to find partners that are willing to fund that, because it was a pilot plan that we had in place in Morton. So I know the community solidars are currently looking at that to see how we can extend that, and actually extend it for where it is at the moment, and if there's other funding opportunities for us to go down that road. So we're looking at that, but it's all down to funding, to be honest with you. The youth safeguarding plan, So availability of drugs, licensed premises, shops and stuff like that. So yeah, so part of our plan is that we do visit the licensed premises in Inverclyde, and I have to say the vast majority of licensed premises in Inverclyde are completely compliant and really do work well with us. But we continue to do that. That's part of the plan. So that happens every weekend anyway. It happens throughout the week with the community police officers as well. The issue that we do have in Inverclyde is dial abuse, which I've asked a couple of people to go away and have a look at that. It's a new way of young people getting alcohol. We do have it in Inverclyde. A lot of the people who are operating these dial abuse are operating it illegally. And we think that that's how the young people are getting quite a lot of the alcohol. So we're trying to come up with a plan about that. It's a bit difficult given the nature of it, but we are working away at that. And I can't remember what the other questions was, but something to do with cyber-enabled crime or something.
Yeah.
Yeah, sorry, yeah, I thought it was better just to put it all out there at once. So it was, I suppose I was talking about the patrols around licensed premises, but with a link to an issue that a few people have raised to do with shops across the area selling drugs paraphernalia, and I just wondered if there were ever any patrols close to those, just with that proactive approach. And the cyber-enabled sexual offences question was about other plans for a campaign to tackle that and help safeguard people, similar to the Shut Out Scammers campaign. Thanks.
So I know that the stuff that Police Scotland have just put online about sexual crimes. So what we'll do is we link in with that, and we then use that to our benefit in Inverclyde. So that's just, it's not been long published that. I think it went out last week. I've been on annual leave this week, so when I come back next week, I'll be having a look at that to see how we can maximise that national campaign, but using a local context. And just to give you absolute assurance about licensed premises, I'm not going to, I won't name any premises at this point, but there is premises that are of interest to us that we will rigorously visit and enforce to make sure that if there's intelligence to suggest that there's alcohol or drugs being sold to young people, then we're all over that. And I suppose it's just a plea to everyone that's here today. If you are told about any licensed premise that's doing this, then please just tell me, and I'll deal with that. You've got an absolute assurance on that.
Thank you for that, Chief Inspector. That's valuable, because I think if they don't have it already, will have your mobile number and they're at liberty to phone you. Any other questions? Councillor Clockerty.
Yeah, thanks, Convener. Two questions for myself. It's really for you to really comment on. The first question is probably on the back of Councillor Quinn, on the back of Lynn's, when Lynn was talking about community police. I suppose my question, you touched upon the amount of illness in the force at the moment, and we've all lived through COVID, and we fully understand what's happening. I suppose for myself as an Inverclyde councillor, I would like some assurances on the staff levels within Inverclyde, and that they've not. I do recognise that you do put officers where they're needed the most on a Friday or a Saturday. I do understand that. However, if we were to see stats with regard to police officers within Inverclyde over the last 5 years, would those numbers remain constant, or would we see those numbers have declined over the 5-year time? So it's just an opportunity to comment on that. My second question is on New Scots and on asylum seekers. As we know, we've got a number of New Scots within Inverclyde now, and we've also got the asylum seekers on the banks of the Clyde. Obviously, these people might have not had the best of relationships with the police force on the countries where they originated from. And it was just to give you an opportunity to comment on any work the police have done with regard to either the New Scots that are now within Inverclyde, or indeed the asylum seekers that are billeted within the hotel. Two questions.
It's two very interesting questions, so comments. David, you want to, Paul, who wants to handle those two?
Well, I'll give it a go, and then I suppose Mr. Duncan
Okay.
can correct me. So the first thing, CPT, community policing team. So my community policing team is at, so all the posts are filled, so I don't have any vacant posts. I think I've got one vacant post, but it's about to get filled in a couple of weeks. So I've always been able to maintain those numbers. And in terms of what that looked like 5 years ago, I'll be honest, I don't know, because I wasn't here. I'm not aware of what it was 5 years ago. I know since being the area commander since October 2020 to now, I've been able to have a full team and community policing team. So I can't talk about what it used to be, because I honestly don't know. But certainly in the time that I've been here, I've had a full team there. We use the team to the benefit of Inverclyde. We have changed the shifts slightly at the weekends to accommodate, because we're seeing more and more nighttime crimes taking place, and so we need community policing to take in a bigger period of time. So we've extended that, because it used to be from 3 o'clock in the afternoon to 11 o'clock at night. It was the CPT. Now it's 2 o'clock in the afternoon to 2 o'clock in the morning. So we're getting a bigger spread of that time period, and that really is. If you look at the report that we've done today, that those figures didn't just happen. That's about putting the right people in the right place at the right time. And the best people for that is the community police officers who know all the individuals and business owners. In terms of the new Scots, so yeah, we have got quite a lot of new Scots in Inverclyde, and we've right our way to make sure that they feel welcome. And in particular, the asylum seekers that you touched on. Now, the Home Office are responsible for the asylum seekers, so I won't touch on what they're responsible for. But what I will say is, from a policing point of view, so I've now, so there's a sergeant that's the single point of contact that basically has contact with them every other day to make sure that everything is okay there. We have only as late as early as yesterday, we have done the safety inputs to all the new asylum seekers that have arrived in Inverclyde, to explain what it's like to live in Inverclyde, what Scots law actually looks like. And you're right, some of the individuals who have came from countries where they do not trust the police, and so I see that as a massive step for me to get them to trust us. And so we've been working hard at that. We originally sent officers down in plain clothes, introduced themselves, and then the second time they went, they wore uniform, and it was to show that to try and break down that barrier. So we do have a gold group that's been chaired by our partnership superintendent, which I am part of. I represent, obviously, as being the area commander for Inverclyde, so I'm aware of pretty much everything that goes on in that hotel. We have, I would say, excellent relationship with Mears, who are responsible for the housing of the asylum seekers. And to be honest, everything has gone to plan at this stage. I won't become complacent to that, but everything has gone to plan, and I'm very happy with how things have worked out so far. We will continue to do the inputs. I think there's 54 individuals, if I remember right, 57 individuals that are there just now. And we're just working our way through to make sure that all those individuals have been given a one-to-one input or a team input about what does it mean to live in Scotland, and what does the laws look like in Scotland. And so we're spending a bit of time about that. I don't know if that answers your questions.
Yeah.
If I could just come in briefly on that one. I think it's important to note that the policing aspect of that is part of a much broader response, which is led locally by your chief executive. So the police aspect of that is relatively minor. The kind of resettlement processes, from our perspective, not caused any significant issues. Thank
you, David. Councillor Fogarty?
Yeah, thanks, Matt. I'm really happy on the second part of the question on our asylum seekers and our new Scots. The first part of the question, it was more to do with general police numbers within Inverclyde. It was just to get that feeling that the policing within Inverclyde has not been diminished in any time over the last few years. So although you mentioned the community police, I'm more interested in general police numbers within Clyde. As a scrutiny board, I think it's part of our role to ensure that policing as a whole within Clyde is still up there as top of the priority both within Clyde but both Strathclyde and Scotland as a whole.
I think that's quite relevant, Councillor Cobb. Perhaps, Tom, your statistics people could have a look at the numbers of police each year over the last 5 or 6 years. Would that be possible with your statistics people?
Yeah, I could get that.
Thank you.
I could certainly get that.
That'd be great. Thank you. Any other questions? Councillor Moran. I keep looking for a light.
Yeah, I know. I told him a microphone for me. Just to follow what we were talking about, that Mr. Duncan said that there was definitely the community police, that there was a shortage of them because of illness and absenteeism. So within the council, within the policy resources, and I think the other committee, we get figures of absenteeism. I don't say that in the police report, so would it be an idea if they could tell us what the absentees figure was? If it's possible, it might not be possible, but if it was possible, could we maybe get that? Because maybe that go a long way to us to understanding if there's a lack of constables on the beat or whatever, is because the people not well or off sick, you know. But the statistics don't come in there. We just have to get somebody's word for it.
Well, call Alan.
I'm quite happy to a legal opinion, all right?
Yeah, thank you, Convener. I'm not really sure it would be appropriate for us to put that call upon the police. I think that would be a sort of operational matter for Police Scotland.
Okay.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I think it would be very risky to publish what the resources are in Inverclyde in a public forum.
I think that's your answer, Councillor Moran.
Peter, I'm quite happy to answer, but I brought it up last time. At least Angelina brought a report out about scrutiny of the police board to Scotland, and we were to get a copy of that or somebody to give us a follow-up report, but I still haven't seen it. And she was quite critical of the police board of Scotland. And she had the report, and she was commissioned by the Scottish Government to carry out this report. So at the end of the day, as a scrutiny board, we can only scrutinise what we have in front of us. And if she's saying we're not getting enough information, then we need to know that. So I've asked for this, and I don't know if I'm on the next part of the agenda, but we should really get this brought to us. And what did she say? And she was critical of the information that we were getting.
Okay. I think PJ, you want to come in? PJ's hands up, isn't it?
I think it's David Duncan's.
I can see a hand. Right, Nathan, do you want to? I don't see his hand.
It's to the side, just put it on the screen.
Right. I'm getting taught here how to read the screen. David, you wish to make a contribution?
Yeah, thanks, King. I had to give myself a lesson just to work out how to put my hand up. So I've managed it. So just to come in on that point, no, absolutely, we welcome the scrutiny that's provided by this scrutiny board, and you know, any information that we can provide, we will provide. However, I think it's probably important to note that we will report by exception if we have a particular absence issue, as we did throughout COVID. We can provide that anecdotally in terms of how we're managing it. But I think it's important that it's our performance that's judged in terms of how I, as a divisional commander, dispose resources across the division to make sure that we're still catering for the needs of local communities. And that could be by, as I have done, devolving certain units down to local level, how we're supported by national resources, mutual aid. So it's probably not as simple as, you know, just reporting on what our particular absence level is. So I would agree it's for me operationally to deliver a policing service. If we are hit with absence, as has happened over the last couple of years, then operationally I will do or put tactics in place to manage that. I didn't quite pick up on what report the council was referring to there. We could probably help with that if it's an issue.
It was.
There was a report from Leeds Angelini who was asked to do a report with Scottish Government and the police service Scotland, and the report came out last year, and it was quite critical of the information that boards received, and she said they should be enhanced.
Yep.
There was stuff against. So, but I brought it up when I was on this committee last year, and this report was supposed to be somehow presented to us, and this is the start of a new board. And I'm proud again because we have never got a presentation of that report. I think you can get it online. But as I say, she was critical of what the information board were receiving.
I can come in on that, convener, if you would like.
Yes, please. Thank you, David.
Yeah, so Dame Ailish Angelini's report is publicly available. The element about scrutiny was a criticism that we didn't include complaints about the police data, which again I referenced when Paul dropped off the call. That's the last piece of information that I provided. So, over the last year we've refined that detail, and we actually go beyond what the recommendation was. We actually break that complaint information down into individual categories and can provide further information as required. I think, Paul, do you want to come in?
Yeah, I was just going to say, so last year when we discussed the report that went to the scrutiny board, because I was heavily involved in this, well, the information that went to the scrutiny board was pretty limited, and I think it was fair to say that the councillors didn't really like it. And then, so when you look at the report that we produce now, that was on the back of the councillors asking for more information. And so the report that we've got today was on the back of that conversation last year, was to enhance what information we could provide. So I suppose, if we needed to revisit that, we could do that, but that was the purpose of doing that. This revamped format was to try and provide that wee bit more detail.
Ruth Baines.
Yes, just to build on Paul's point, we did revise the whole of the scrutiny report brought to the police, and that was in consultation with everybody involved. And also you can see on page 29, it now does include complaints on the police. So we had a big overview. We wanted to perhaps give more complaint information, which you'll see included as well, making sure that the statistics were understandable. So we did react to the report as quickly as we possibly could.
Thank you, Ruth. I think that's helpful. I think what David said was helpful. I think if you could get into the figures for the past 5 or 6 years, I think that would satisfy Councillor Docherty. Any other questions?
Convener, if there's no hands up or anyone in the chat line, if I could come in with a couple of questions.
Yeah, there's nothing in the chat.
Yeah. Okay, that's fine, thank you. It's basically to do with the road safety. And as someone who has cycled from a very young age, I can remember the first bike with the stabilisers on it, and then going through my cycle proficiency test, passing that, and cycling for a number of years. Indeed, cycling up until just a few years ago, albeit mostly on the likes of forestry tracks. So someone who has an understanding of what it's like to be a cyclist, I was just wondering, with the new legislation whereby motorists should be giving cyclists wide berth, has there been any issues flagged up about motorists actually breaking the law on that? Also understanding that it could be hard to get evidence on that, not unless the bike rider has camera fitted to their helmet, or whether the dash cam footage are available. And the second question, it may not really be road safety, but it definitely involves motorised vehicles. And at the Inverclyde Local Access Forum, there's an issue of off-road bikes, scramblers, dirt bikes, call what you wish, and also quad bikes on Clyde Muirshield Park. And it's just to find out if that has been flagged up as an issue with you.
Thank you, John. 2 questions there, David or Paul?
Yeah, I can give you an answer. Certainly around about the motorised vehicles. So that is, it's not been as big an issue in the last 12 months as it has been previously. We have seized a bike. I can't remember if we got it crushed or not, but it's getting crushed. I know that. And we've charged a couple of people with that. So yeah, so that is it's an ongoing complaint. We bring down road policing officers to assist us with that. What would be really good if we had our own quad bikes, and that's maybe a conversation for another day, because obviously there's funding issues around about that. But that would be really welcome in Inverclyde. But yeah, so we are aware of the off-road stuff. We have seized instead of 1 or 2 motorbikes, we've seized and we've charged a number of people. In terms of the near miss, so I'm a cyclist as well, so I know exactly what you're talking about, because I've actually been hit by a car in the past. So we have had road policing colleagues come down. I can't remember if they call it close call or near miss. I can't remember. It's an operation that they do where you have an unmarked car, and then further up the road they'll have a marked police vehicle, and then we basically monitor to see if people are passing the cyclist too close, and it's a road policing officer that's on the bike. So we have done that in Inverclyde. I'll do it again. I'll continue to do it if you think there's a need for that. But certainly I haven't had that many complaints, but it's certainly it's there for us to use. I can call on, as I say, I get road policing down here. Honestly, we've got a great relationship with them, so I could ask him to do that any day of the week. So I'll revisit that. I'll give you an assurance I'll revisit that and see if we can get anything out of that. But you're right, it's very difficult to get the prosecution, but we have operations that we can set up for that. Sorry, the boss is just telling me it's Operation Close Pass is the name. So it's Operation Close Pass. I was close. I said close call. So so that's available for me to use as area commander. I have used it, and given that Mr. Crowley has raised that, I'll give you an assurance I'll get that done again.
Thank you.
Okay, that's lovely. Thank you.
And if you want to be involved in it, let me know.
Okay, that's fine. Thank you. I still have the bike, so I do. Don't use it very often, though.
Is it the one with the stabiliser?
I think I got rid of the stabilisers a couple of years ago.
Oh, right. Thank you for that answer, Chief Inspector. Chief Superintendent, you wanted to add something? Operation Close Pass Cycling?
Yeah, it was just clarity over the name of that operation. It's publicly, it's been broadcast on all channels, so just a clarification on that, but it's as Paul's described.
Thank you, David. Right, if there's no more questions, we'll move on to agenda item number 5. It's the report on Local Police and Fire Scrutiny Committee update report. Ms. Vince?
I'll introduce this, and just before I do introduce it, just to come back on Councillor Brennan's question about the cybercrime and particularly the sexual aspects of it. Police Scotland's website is excellent for any information about cybercrime, particularly in sextortion and looking at private parents. So I can highly recommend that as a very good resource. So nothing much to add to the paper. This is the national and emerging issues relating to police and fire and rescue matters. And happy for anyone to take any personal questions.
Any questions? I don't see anything on the chat. Anybody in the room? No. Colleagues, we recommended to 3.1 that the committee notes the current and emerging national issue relating to police and fire and rescue matters. Are we happy to do so? Thank you.
Agreed.
That concludes the meeting. Thank you very much, and thanks to the officers who have attended. Thank you.